Hoop Talk back in the building. Been a little minute. My man looks like he's on vacation, but his backyard is actually a vacation spot. You didn't even know. Now you know. What up?
What's happening? Yeah, nice to be back. It's been a little bit of a break. It's been crazy, I think, for both of us. You got a lot of things going. I had a couple graduations here, and real life happens sometimes. And oh, hey, we're back. We're back today. So let's get this thing going.
We are back. Excited to be back. Tell us about the backyard real quick. I mean, it looks good. You got to give us a quick. Boston's not supposed to look that good, is it?
You know what? So Brian, here's the deal. My little secret. It's actually the front. I'm sitting on the little porch. Little secluded spot up here.
Even better.
Yeah, but as you can see, maybe not another gloomy June day here in Boston. I mean, it's we haven't had nice weather here yet. It still feels like it's March.
Wow, is it happening like in New York? I know it's not that close, but like with the whole Canada fires, smoke thing.
Yeah, that rolled through here the last couple of weeks. It's been crazy. Actually, I drove up. One of my sons goes to school up at Dartmouth in New Hampshire.
Yeah,
drove up to pick him up last week, and really smoky up there. So just crazy. Not as bad as New York though. You see those pictures? That's
it's
bad.
Like an orange sky. It doesn't even look real.
Yeah, it definitely looks
dangerous. Prayers for those people. All right, let's get into it. We got some real hoop dirt talk to have to happen today. Let's start it off with the new Division I job. So let's go over under. Let's revisit your over under. Tell us what the numbers are, and then we'll go back to we'll talk about the job that's open.
Yeah. So and listen, people hear me talk about this a lot. Back on March 1st, I set that over under on Division I job openings at 60.5. For a while we were sitting on that number of 59. Until last week when Charlotte opened. So Charlotte puts that at 60. And I know you and I have talked on this show before. 59 seems like it's done. How's it going to get, I keep saying hit the over, it's going to be over. Well, it's stuff like this that happens. Ron Sanchez kind of leaving, a lot of questions why, who knows why, but takes a really good job, obviously, back at Virginia with Tony Bennett. He's been there, really good gig, associate head coach in the ACC. Can't beat that. So can't fault him for leaving, but that's how these numbers kind of keep growing and puts us at 60 right now for the season. And I still say take the over. I still say we've got at least one or two left in us.
I believe that. As crazy as college basketball is, I do believe that. So Coach Sanchez was at Virginia before. I believe Coach Getter just left to go to Notre Dame he was the associate coach. He went to Notre Dame with Shrewsbury. So that left an opening. And so now Sanchez is going back as associate coach. What are even if we don't know why or whatever, you may know why, but what are your thoughts on the move in general?
It's an interesting move. There's a lot of pressure being a Division I head coach. He'd been there 5 years. His record was just under 500. They had a nice year this year, won 22-14, won the CBI, if anybody cares about winning the CBI. But you get a little bit more job security by going back to Virginia. He can be there for a while. Obviously, the money in the ACC is really good. He was making $460 plus $2, probably just under $700 at Charlotte, but probably still making good money at Virginia, obviously. So I think it's a good move for him. It kind of extends his time at the high major level, but really just odd timing. As far as openings go and having to conduct a search right now. So I think it's been a really interesting search.
Let's talk about the search in just a second. So we had some interesting moves similar to this one.
Yep.
Not exactly. David Patrick, smaller school, leaves Riverside, goes to be an associate coach at Arkansas, then goes to Oklahoma, eventually becomes a head coach again. We saw Barrett Perry do something similar from Portland to Texas Tech. We saw Rodney Terry do it from Texas. Obviously, that played out big dividends for him in the current time, not knowing that was going to happen. I don't think Tony Bennett's going to have anything happen to him unless he just decides to retire, but definitely a good move to be able to get back there, I'm sure, for many reasons. But we've seen it become a trend. Guys that are in that seat go back to that level and kind of, like you said, maybe get to not necessarily relax, but get to take some of the head coach pressure off of themselves, get back in a familiar scenario, and then, see how it plays out and play the long game. So, tell us more about the search now.
Yeah, so it's it's been an interesting search. So I think, pretty quickly I put my my initial odds up on the search, listed like 15, 20 guys. But it's kind of fun to see how these things develop a little bit. And it's also, this has been a fun one for me, at least. I've got some people close to it, but it's also, quiet in the search business right now. So we can really focus some attention on this. So it's been nice to actually like focus on one search and see it kind of wind, kind of get into a really good place here. So right now, I believe there's a top four for this thing right now.
Oh, wow. There's already a top four.
That's from what I'm getting. I think there's a top.
Yeah, tell us about this. This is good. That's what the people want to know. Let's go.
Yeah. So if you look at my initial odds, the guy I listed with the best odds right away was Aaron Fern, who's the interim head coach there. He's been the associate head coach, under Sanchez, done a really nice job there. Coached in Australia before he got to Charlotte, coached at, the NBL, which is Australia's pro league, coached there, had some success. But I think he's the favorite. For whether this matters or not, but you talk to a lot of guys, he does have the support of the players, which is big, and especially this late in the game, that's big. So I think he was my initial leader. He's definitely in that mix in the top four. But three other names. One that's kind of come charging up the list here is Ben McCollum from Northwest Missouri. As you know, he's had a ton of success at Northwest Missouri. Division II, I think he's won 4 national championships since he's been there. He's been there since 2009. Since he's been there, he's gone 365 and 85. That's an 811 winning percentage. He's messed around with a bunch of Division I jobs, but this is a really good job. We haven't talked about that yet. Let's talk about this after we talk about these candidates. But the Charlotte's a really good job. So I think he's starting to make some noise. I think another guy, the guy who I had listed second in the odds the whole time, Cody Kimball, an assistant at Miami, former assistant at Charlotte, was there for 4 years before he bolted last spring for Miami. I think he's got a really good shot. He's, from what I gather, he's in the top 4. Really good young guy with a good future in this business. And lastly, and I wouldn't rank him last in this group, but I've heard that Bart Lundy really is making a charge here. As you know, Bart Lundy was the head coach at Queens and Charlotte when they were Division II school before they went Division I. Had a big time record there. Was great at Queens. Took over Milwaukee last year. Milwaukee, before he took over, was 10-22. He led them to a 22-12 record. I've heard there is a little bit of a buyout that could be an issue there. But from what I hear, he's in that mix for that top 4. And then one other one real quick, from what I've heard, is that they did take a swing and a miss at Chris Mack. Whether Mack's looking for something bigger and better, I don't know. But I've heard they did take a swing, but did whiff on Chris Mack. So that's where we are right now. What I believe, is that final group. But take a peek. If you look at our odds on hoopdirt.com, I've got about 20 guys listed. And I like, we started doing it recently. I like kind of listing the odds because, I'll put my initial odds, but then I'll kind of put, in the next update where they've gone. And you can kind of see, as we get like more like, real information, how it kind of shifts. And I think, to be honest, I think we're pretty right on with this one right now. CSA has this search, kind of tough to get stuff when they have a search, but from what I gather, I think as of right now, and we're filming this on a Saturday morning, as of right now, this is where this search is.
Do you think when it happens this later and this unexpected, is it more likely to take its time versus being like right in the middle of the portal is closed. So I guess let's talk about that real quick. The portal is officially closed. So it does make it where it feels like they're probably not going to be as quick as maybe when it's in the height of transfer season and I got to hire a coach really quickly so I don't lose my whole roster. Do you feel like that's part of the play, that they'll be able to take their time with the search? Maybe not take too long, but take longer than maybe they would have if the portal was still open.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some less pressure there as far as getting players and losing players.
Right.
But, if I'm not mistaken, Division I guys got on the court last week, so they can, it's time for them to kind of start getting out there. So, if they're not going to keep Aaron Fern, then they got some other guy working out their players right now.
Right. Right.
That's a little bit of a setback. But yeah, definitely, less heat as far as losing guys to the portal.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. but again, and that's, to be honest, is one of the reasons why we opened up with Fern with the, best odds to get this thing. I mean, because it did happen so late, and they did have a little bit of success last year, winning 22 games, winning the CBI. From what everyone says, he's a good guy, good coach. I mean, I think it benefits him. I think it benefits him being late, though.
Right.
I think it gives him a little bit of an upper hand here.
Yeah, I mean, as far as human being and the job he's done, he didn't inherit it. They weren't very good when he got it. Did a good job. Definitely is a tremendous person, and obviously won a championship last year. CUSA, I mean, real quick, shout out to CUSA. They had a monster championship postseason. Their record was ridiculous between UAB, North Texas, FAU, and Charlotte. But Charlotte is moving to the American, so that makes it even more of a good job. Really has a great history. Most people wouldn't even know. They went to the Final Four, I think in 77. Have 11 tournament appearances, got a ton of success. Amazing city to live in.
Yeah.
And you're going into what really should continue to be a two-bid league. FAU will be a top 10 team. Memphis is usually a top 25 caliber team. Houston is obviously leaving, which has been the flagship program in the conference. But FAU returning a team from the Final Four kind of feels respectfully speaking, feels the poll ranking type of team to be able to have a two-bid league again, and maybe even three. So tell us about the job itself. What do you love about this job?
Yeah, so I do love the job. I'm one of the things that I'm fortunate enough to do is, I still do some stuff with the NJCAA. So every April I go down to the NJCAA convention, which is in Charlotte, and where we stay is right across from Charlotte's campus. I like to run. So every year I spend a couple of days, I run through Charlotte's campus, and the facilities are unbelievable. I think it's such a sell. Like you said, Charlotte's a great city to live in. And then walking through that campus, you get on campus, the football stadium's right there. You go down the road, on the left side is this beautiful baseball field. Then you've got the softball field. You got a great track, and then you got the gym up there. It's such a great campus to sell. It's a great city to sell. It's a great school, so and then, going into the, new league next year, really, I think it's one of the better jobs that has opened this offseason. I really think you can get it done there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. All right, let's move on to the next one. Last question on Charlotte. How soon do you think it's done by the end of next week, or will it go into the next week?
No, I think it's done. Yeah, like quick. I think Wednesday of next week we'll know more. I don't think it goes till Friday of next week.
Nice. I like it. Yeah. I like it. That means we need to get this episode out. So whatever day
that's Saturday,
we don't know when it's coming out, but you'll find out soon. May even be Monday morning. All right, here we go with D2 and D1 coaches moving. So we kind of got this flow of D1 guys taking D2 jobs, D2 guys taking D1 jobs. Talk a little about this, because it's a little interesting twist that's happening kind of later in this offseason.
Yeah, so a couple moves over the last month, which were interesting. I think it's definitely worth talking about, and it's just interesting to see different coaches and how they approach their career and the different path they can take. Right. So Division II Chestnut Hill College, J.J. Butler was the head coach there. He left a couple weeks ago, became an assistant at Delaware. Pretty good, right? You go from D2 head coach, Division I assistant. But on the other end of the spectrum, you got Justin Jennings, who was an assistant at Drexel, went and became the head coach at Division II Edinboro. So, pretty interesting. Interesting for a lot of reasons. Like J.J. Butler, who went to Delaware, he was at Chestnut Hill. He was actually a Chestnut Hill alum. So he leaves the place that, he played and graduated from to take a Division I job. And then you got a guy like Justin Jennings, who had a pretty good Division I job at Drexel. He had been at Army, leaves to go to Division II Edinboro in Pennsylvania. And I guess he's a Western Pennsylvania native. But just kind of interesting, Brian, and we've talked, and, we talked to a lot of young coaches, but just different career paths. Guys always, I don't know. Sometimes guys kind of get put in a box a little bit and say like, oh, I want to be a Division I assistant, so I got to do this, and get to that level. But now, so, you got one guy going there, one guy coming back, but really kind of like the same jobs, Drexel and Delaware, in my mind, similar assistance jobs.
Right.
Both these schools, similar Division II head coaching jobs. So I don't know. To me, I think it's, a pretty interesting discussion. I don't know. Is one of them better? Is one of them not better? Is it a personal thing? Like I said, JJ Butler, he was an alum at Chestnut Hill, and he leaves there to take a Division I job.
Right.
Justin Jennings, I guess, like I said, he's a Western PA native, so he's going back that way. And then, does he go back that way and get stuck? I don't know. So
I think there's a few things that kind of come into this too. So number one, I think, or not in order, but one thing is, I think the new rule to be able to have 5 coaches on the floor, I think you'll see more guys that are Division II, either head coaches or even vice versa. I think Division I assistants want a chance to lead programs, and they're hard to get, really hard to get. So I think that's not a new trend, but I think you'll see even more of that too, because I think some of those opportunities may come about. But I think the 5 spots allows for, whether that coach is coming and is responsible to recruit or is just a coach on the floor, there just creates more opportunity, and it's less pressure on every assistant to have to go be great in recruiting. Because ultimately, if you don't have Jokic and Jamal Murray, hard to be where Denver is right now. You know what I mean? So you got to have players, and not to mention Aaron Gordon and the whole crew. They got a deep team. So if you don't have players in college or pro, it makes it hard to win. So I think having 5 spots on the floor now makes it where you can actually hire some guys who are experienced coaches, really good at what they do, and they can just be your offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator or be whatever the case may be. So I do think you'll see more of that, because prior to, if you hired a guy like that, he had to be really active recruiting too, because you don't want to almost sacrifice one of those spots. So, and I think older in your career, you get a lot of those guys are like, I don't want to be chasing players all over, like going around. Like, don't get me wrong, they'll get on the phone and do their thing, but I think that has something to do with it. And then I think there's just something that's like the timing where you are in your life, and you kind of experience as you've been a head coach, you move from one place to another. You just kind of get to a place where you want a new challenge, or you want to do something different, or you haven't maybe done Division I yet, so you want to give it a shot.
Yeah. So you bring up a great point right there. You just brought in like the personal aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of guys, especially guys like me, like, we don't always think about that, right? You're always like, whoa, is this a good move for him? Why is he going from here to here? But you're right. And you've done this a long time. You made a bunch of moves. What's right for you and your family at the time.
Yep.
So on paper is going from, Drexel to a Division II school a good move? Maybe not. I don't know. Would I have done it? Probably not. But if you're talking about, is this the best move for your family? We don't know what's going on. Right. Maybe it's a great move, and that's a big part of it. And, man, this business is a grind. I mean, it's not easy.
No.
By any means, so if you can find a place where you can get to be comfortable for a little bit, and you're never comfortable, but more comfortable.
Yeah.
Do it. And to be honest, this goes back to almost how we started this show, talking about Coach Sanchez, leaving. I mean, he definitely had some pressure at Charlotte. You win 22 games and you still have pressure. But you can go, and like you said, not like totally relax at Virginia, but like you got a little bit of a respite, and you got some time to, gather yourself, and, really good job. So, and I think that's what sometimes, and I'm glad you brought it up. I think a lot of us miss is kind of like the personal aspect. Like, hey, we're all human too, so I do think that plays a big role in it. And, from, and you do it too. I speak to a lot of young guys. I mean, I don't know that they understand the personal part of it yet, especially young guys without families, who can go take.
They don't even have to understand it yet. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Right. They just grind and want to get to that certain level.
Yep.
But then you get to, you have a family, and
you start getting your late 30s and 40s. You're thinking about more like to me at least, I start thinking about the end game. Like, where am I going to end up? Don't get me wrong, being an assistant is great, and everyone has a different path and calling. But I wanted to be in a position where I could lead and be in a head seat. I didn't want to just be taking direction from someone above me all the time. And you always have someone above you, but as far as a head coach, being able to make those decisions. So I think, and I think conversely, it is nice to be able to sometimes, assistant coaches focus on usually 3 to 5 major things is their role. That's their like recruiting. Maybe you have academics, maybe you have scheduling, maybe you have guards, maybe you have posts, whatever the case may be. But when you're a head coach, I mean, it multiplies to 25 things, it feels like. Yeah. So when you're managing those 25 things all the time, and then you've checked that box, hey, I know I can do this. Let me take a seat, go back to the highest level, enjoy that role with somebody I'm comfortable with, or somebody that hasn't done it yet. Let me try that. Right. Let me see what I can, because you see guys like, I mean, you look at Nate Oates is a great example. There's a ton of others. But Nate Oates went to be an assistant. He was a high school coach. And now he's one of the best coaches regarded in the country. Was number 1 seed overall in the tournament. And I tell a funny story sometimes every time I see Nate, I'm like, Nate, remember, I don't know if you remember this, but you stayed on my at my house when I was at Utah at one point in time. So anyway, long story short, I was on the staff. He came on a visit, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I digress, but definitely makes sense to be able to make some personal moves. And I think sometimes when you're a Division I assistant, you just want to be able to call your own shots. You want to have a clipboard in a timeout. You want to see, can I do this? I would like to do this. I'd like to be able to decide if we're going to practice early in the morning so I can go to my daughter's soccer game or my brother's wedding or whatever the case may be. When you're Division I, you don't always get that luxury.
That's right.
Let's talk a little bit about the portal. Not a lot. And you don't have to. You can contribute as much as you feel comfortable. But the portal is interesting after the draft, because there's a lot of guys that come back to school, but then they decide they're in the portal. So there's almost a new wave of the market, and it's in its own way, like in free agency for the NBA, call it what it is. You have your first tier, those max contracts guys, and they go first, but there's no other wave. It just kind of goes like that. Or in an NBA draft, you have your lottery, then your second round. But it's interesting about the portal now is that it almost creates this new late wave of, hey, there's still going to be some really good difference maker, almost NBA level talent available. And I saw this or read this in an article just this week, that the NIL demand, if you wait longer or if you're in this pool, because there's less good players, your NIL demand goes extremely high up, comparatively speaking, that if you're in the pool early on with all the other talented players that are in the portal. So just an interesting dynamic to kind of keep an eye on year in and year out. And there's probably 5 or 6 super impactful players left that can, be difference makers on a team, that can help a team make a Final Four run, win a championship, you name it. So I think there's definitely some interesting elements to the portal and what still is going on, even though it's quote unquote closed. There's this late wave that really can make a difference. And this is the first year the portal has closed officially. It has a date. So that also makes it different. This is the first time we're actually seeing this.
Yeah, no, you bring up some good points. I mean, it's so interesting, and you talking about the portal and the post draft stuff and this and NIL, and I'm sitting here thinking like, man, it's no wonder that Jay Wright retired, and it's no wonder that Jim Boeheim retired,
right?
Kay retired. Like it's such a different thing, but also like you were saying. With it closing, now there's a closing date in this NIL stuff. I mean, it really is a mess because it's not regulated at all. And,
right.
and I think we definitely need to do a show on this because there's some crazy stuff happening right now.
But the NCAA president, I believe, the new president did come out and say he wants to push for federal regulation of NIL.
Yeah, and there's got to be something, and it's a mess because if you read the stories, I mean, there's guys out there that aren't getting paid what they're promised. There's guys out there that are making money that haven't even filed tax returns because no one's telling them to do. This is a mess. But I'm just curious to see the shift of. So we're talking, this is June of 23. What's it going to be like next year?
Right.
And then the year after. I mean, I just think this is such a changing and evolving process with the portal and NIL and all this. And I definitely think, definitely something that we got to keep digging into. But I'm just kind of curious to see where this is all headed. It's an interesting year right now, obviously, but curious to see where this is going.
Yeah, it's interesting too because there's no. So what I would use, it's almost it is reactionary because it came out and it happened and no one really knew how it was going to happen or what was going to happen. And it felt like the first year, it felt like it was going to be more NIL, where kids are making money off their name, image, and likeness. And technically they are, but it just really feels like a direct pay-to-play situation now at this point that's just disguised under NIL because it is their name, image, and likeness. When you talk about how guys are making decisions in the portal, and a lot of the – if you talk to any college coach at this point in time, there's a large amount of frustration at every level because the best programs and the highest level programs are losing players too. It's not just the mid-majors anymore that are – it feels like it's feeding ground. It's really everybody's kind of victim to some elements of this. And even talking to coaches, they're used to have some downtime in the offseason or a certain time of year where you could feel like I can recharge, where now really hard to do that because most guys are still recruiting someone right now, not for future classes, but for right now. So I think there's a lot of interesting stuff with the portal. It won't end NIL and won't be done anytime soon. Let's talk a little NBA. We always like to jump in, talk a little bit about the hoops. We mentioned Denver a while back about them could be a team that win a championship. It looks like they are one game away for sure, but it looked like even back then, no one was the favorite. They were the number one team, the least talked about team. But man, if you're a basketball person, it's impossible not to appreciate what this team is about. They have an element of a modern day Spurs with a Tim Duncan-esque type of star, with this deep team that plays this continuity style that you don't know who's going to be the one to step up and kind of hurt you on any given night. And they have a little bit of that Dallas Mavericks, Dirk Nowitzki, which I think I mentioned before, this European star who's Dirk had more personality than Jokic.
Yeah.
Jokic is not necessarily the most, but he's about business. And you just have to appreciate how good just him alone. Like, he's gotten 2 MVPs in a row, could have got a third, and he still probably is the super most underappreciated big man we've seen. But man, are they good?
They are good. They're so much fun to watch. And like you said, I don't know how Jokic didn't win his 3rd straight MVP, but hey, whatever. But he really is fun to watch.
He'll get a Finals MVP though, and
yes,
he probably wants that one even more.
Yes, he will. I mean, he's a triple-double machine. He's already got 2 triple-doubles in this postseason. He's got a double-double every game. But but like you said, kind of like that Tim Duncan-esque kind of quiet superstar. It's funny. I saw an interview with Mike Malone this morning, and that's what he was talking about. He was kind of comparing Jokic to Tim Duncan. Like, he's selfless, but he's a killer. Like, he's going to win games. Don't mess with him. And he really is just fun to watch. Like, he gets it. Like, he just knows how to play. Yeah. He's not selfish. He finds guys. And me, I'm a Boston guy. I'm a pretty unbiased or a pretty biased, selfish Boston guy that loves to,
I think aren't all Boston fans like that, by the way?
We're all like that. We're all like, but on the flip side, then we're all pretty negative when our team loses, right? Yes. And then and especially here, listening to sports radio, guys just kill Jason Tatum, because he is selfish at times. And and you just look at the difference between Jokic or even like a Jimmy Butler, who really are not selfish and are kind of those superstars that will just get it done. So it's been interesting just to watch the difference between the Celtics who need to fix it a little bit. Yeah. And then Miami and Denver, 2 teams that deservedly deserve to be in the NBA championship right now. I mean, they're both fun to watch.
We will bring up a Celtics combo right after this. But I wanted to say one last thing on Denver, which by the time we air again, they probably will be crowned champions. No disrespect to Miami, really good team. Has had an incredible run from the play-in game, which is new in the NBA, a seed, to playing to get to the actual playoffs, to all the way here. No one could have imagined, even though they were just here with pretty much the same team, same core a few years ago against the Lakers. No one could have imagined they would do this. So you got to tip your hat to them, but they just don't have enough. And if they were going to do it, in my opinion, you have to get one of those ones at home. You can't let both of them go and then go back to Denver in the altitude where they're so good. But I think the part that I love about what's happening with Denver is it's so good for the game of basketball as a whole. Like, usually whoever wins the championship it kind of sets a bar for the basketball culture of like, hey, this is what's in right now. This is what's working. So I think when you go back to the Spurs, there was an element of boring basketball and being unselfish, and the 0.5 decisions and sharing it was a cool thing.
Yeah.
Then you had Steph and Clay and the Warriors do their thing, and obviously LeBron. LeBron felt a lot more individualistic. You need to have some big time players so you can be like them and be able to play in ISO and have shooters. But then Steph and Clay made you have this ball movement, player movement. That was the thing. So now to have a big man that is playing the way that he's playing in an unselfish team, it is good for basketball culture as a whole, because I think it usually sets the bar for what people want to emulate below. Now, you can't have most people don't have a player even close to that as a big man that can pass, but just the concepts usually help. And it's good that the Heat are in as an old school team, kind of roll your sleeves up, the Heat culture, grit and grind kind of culture. I think those things are really good for basketball as a whole. So I will say this. I believe there was a celebratory hire on the Celtics coaching staff. Talk about that real quick before we go to our recommendations and close out.
Yeah, no, that big time hiring Sam Cassell.
Yeah.
Veteran. He played here for a little bit, but he's been in the league forever. He's an NBA lifer.
Yeah.
And
world champion with the Rockets.
Yeah.
Regarded as one of the best assistants in the NBA. Yeah. Kind of one of those guys that's like next up to be a head coach.
Oh yeah, he'll be a head coach soon. Maybe he's a head coach here soon. Who knows? But that was just a tremendous hire for the Celtics, and they needed it. And there's nothing against Joe Mazzulla, but you got a 34-year-old guy who last season was in that second row behind the bench, kind of gets thrown into this thing, and he's gonna lose a bunch of the guys that he has right now to Houston, who are going with Udoka. So to bring in a guy like Sam Cassell is huge. It's huge for the organization because he, not that players don't respect Mazzulla by any means, but guys will respect Sam Cassell because he had a lot of success in the league as a player. He's been in the league for a long time now as an assistant, and again, he's an NBA lifer who understands how this thing works.
I saw that. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying that's they need. I mean, that's for whatever player moves they may or may not make, and they got to make they got to do something, but just to bring Sam Cassell into the mix, right? It helps them tremendously. They've already had a good offseason.
Yeah, I saw Danny Ainge gave a lot of support to Mazzulla. Said he's our guy. The way he handled such an adverse situation and the way he handled the playoffs and got the team to respond. He was like, of course he's going to learn and continue to get better, but there's no doubt he's our guy, and he's a great NBA head coach. I thought that was great for Danny Ainge to come out and
Brad Stevens.
Oh yeah, was it Brad Stevens?
Brad Stevens, yeah. Yep.
Oh yeah. Sorry, excuse me. Danny Ainge is somewhere else now.
Yeah.
I thought it was Danny Ainge. I had a flashback of the green with Danny Ainge. And then the other part of it too is like, of course, Udoka was gone. But then David Stoudemire also took the job at Georgia Tech and didn't get to finish out his playoff run either. And obviously, James Stoudemire, NBA player, legend on that side, did a phenomenal job at a really hard job in Pacific. I would imagine he was impactful of a loss too in its own way. So it's good to get somebody like Cassell in the building for the C's. They needed that.
Yep. Definitely a big one. So hopefully they're better next year.
The problem is for Celtics fans, they got to the finals and it was like, we got everybody back and we added these pieces. It's our year. Yeah, it's just the expectations weren't always fair, but they were real. They are what they are. All right, so recommendations. I will go first. This is an easy one for me. It is approaching July. This is my first time in this new role with Rising Coaches as president of basketball operations, and we have our first conference in a long time. So we're 14th annual Rising Coaches Conference. Will be in Vegas at the Palms Hotel. We're excited, really excited about the lineup. We're going to go with a lot of different panels, so there'll be a lot of different variation of opinions and input and knowledge and wisdom and perspective and experiences to be able to share. So yeah, really excited about it. You can register at risingcoaches.com. And can't beat Vegas, right? NBA Summer League, get to hang out, do a couple of socials with networking too. But yeah, really excited about doing even more panel speaking and having some really good topics. We'll talk about NIL. We'll talk about recruiting. We'll talk about what it takes to win a national championship. We'll have a couple guys that have won one. We'll talk about offense, defense. We have multiple guys that were just in last year's Final Four that will be contributing. So we're excited about it. We'll get the speaker list out soon. And at some point, you will see Adam Nelson as a speaker. I don't know when. I'm just calling it now. You'll see it. But yeah, that's my recommendation. Rising Coaches Conference. Check it out, risingcoaches.com. It's July 13th and 14th in Vegas.
I love it. I think it's a great recommendation, and you will see me there at some point. You know, I've tried to get out there a couple of times. I think it's a great thing. I think it's a great thing you guys are doing. I think it's great for not just young guys in the game. I think it's for great for all, you know, all these coaches in the game. Yeah. So, you know, it really is a good thing that you're doing. So I would second Coach Burton here and encourage everybody to sign up.
Let's go
as soon as you can.
Let's go.
And yes, next year I'll be out there with you next year. I promise.
Yeah,
I'll get myself.
I look forward to that. I'm gonna hold you to it. We got it on wax. Can't go back on it. We got a double down recommendation, and then yeah, it's about to be NBA draft. I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point. We got the finals closing up. Yeah, guys are in summer school. July gets a little more settled in. We got summer league and fun stuff like that to watch. But yeah, look forward to more things going on, and we'll be back soon. You know where to find us.
I'm going to throw one more thing at you real quick.
Yeah, please, one more thing I was going to say. I was going to pass it back to you.
Late text right here. I just got one. Someone really close to Charlotte. Time to update the odds. So I'm going to follow up on this one, and we'll have more about Charlotte soon.
Ooh, like it.
Yeah. Time to update the odds. So that means something's happening like right now. So this is exciting stuff. Love it.
So I would anticipate this will probably be out. It could even be out Sunday morning. It could be before you go to church. It may be out. You never know. But
all right.
Excited to keep doing it. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.